Hello! I've been intending for some time, a few years in fact, to do a video or a series of videos about these wargames rules, Panzer Korps, by a guy called Manny Granillo. They've been around quite a while, 15 years or more. I've been playing them for maybe 5 years, and I really like them. I guess that's no surprise, otherwise I wouldn't be making a video about them. So in this introduction I just want to say a little bit about the rules, why I like them, and then I'll create some other videos about specific aspects of the rules and probably play a trial or demo game. The rules, and one of the reasons I like them, is that they are at a very much higher level than most wargames rule sets around. They are, as described there, divisional warfare. They are intended to simulate the clash between two forces broadly of divisional size. And that means that they are simulating the sort of battles, the sort of encounters that you read about in history books, in your Ospreys or whatever. Most wargame sets in practice are fights between platoons or companies or something of that order. Large skirmishes. There are rules sets which look at supposedly larger battles, but they tend to be what's called bath-tubbing. In other words, a smallish unit behaving like a smallish unit but called something larger. And that's fine. There's a great deal of pleasure to be had from refighting a skirmish, a reinforced platoon. The German platoon usually seems to have found itself a Tiger, and the Allied side has also found a tank from somewhere, fighting around a farmhouse somewhere in Normandy, and a great deal of fun to be had from that. But if you're actually looking to recreate some of the significant battles of history, you need to go to a higher level. And I feel that this rule set really does give the feel of commanding a force at that level up. There are some competitors, some other rule sets that do look at this sort of level. An obvious comparator is Spearhead. This is probably a little bit lower down, Spearhead, but it's comparable. You do send battalions around the table, but Spearhead to me has more micromanaging that I like. You actually have to position and worry about individual platoons when you're moving your battalions. Another rule set quite recent is Rommel. Again, that most definitely at the same divisional level. I own Rommel. I've never played competitive games with it. I played a few trial setups. To me, Rommel seems like a board war game rule set using miniatures. It's on a square grid. The rules are very much like the sort of rules that you'd have in a board war game, with all sorts of rules about approach directions and so on. Nothing at all wrong with that if that's what you like, but it doesn't really quite fit my vision of a miniature war games rule set, which Panzer Korps most definitely does. So just thinking about the sorts of things that make it feel right, that make it feel like a big battle. One of them is the approach to time. They very much give the feeling throughout the battle of time passing, a day passing. You can even have multi-day battles if you want, so you can have a nighttime turn and then fight a second or third day of battle. But you very much feel the clock. And the sort of battles that we're talking about here would take place over many hours or even, as I say, days, and that's very strongly reproduced. The sort of level of forces that you're commanding, as I've said, they are of a divisional size, and your individual units are essentially battalions, and you really don't have to worry about the detail within the battalion. You move your battalions around, and they are the smallest element of your forces. The way in which command and control and generalship is handled also to me gives a feeling of a higher level, partly because you're not micromanaging your troops, which I think is quite important, but also because of the way in which both the individual characteristics of the leader and also the organizational structure of the army, the way in which it's either better or worse at managing the deployment of large numbers of troops over a large area, many miles in many cases. I believe that's well represented. It's a few things need to be clear about. This is most definitely not an army list system. There are no points, and it's not the sort of rule set where you will develop an army to a point limit and min-max the troops to be as effective as possible, and then take your army to your friends and fight a battle. It's almost exclusively, certainly the battles I've fought are scenario based. It is that there is a campaign system, and you can fight a series of connected hypothetical battles with the forces generated through the campaign rules. But the real strength of this rule set is in its reproducing battles, which, as I say, are historically based, and the kind of thing that has a code name and that you will read about in history books. A number of people have spent quite a lot of time and efforts creating these scenarios, working out how best to reproduce the forces within the rules and how to simulate the encounters and the way in which they were fought. So it's very much reproducing history or refighting history in a way that all war games claim to be, but in fact most of them are not. Most of the war games fights that we have got no background in history. They're just an encounter between two groups of troops. One final thing I should say, the most definitely criticism of the rules that I have and many people have, and I think Manny would also recognise, is they could do with a really good edit. The rules are very complete. It's all in there for the most part, but it's sometimes very difficult to find, and you sometimes feel that vital information has just been popped on a page somewhere where it seemed good. I understand that there is a new version of the rules going to come out in November 2018, so a couple of months from now, which I believe will certainly be a restructuring, reorganising and re-edit of the rules. I don't know if it's intended to actually change the rules themselves any. Personally, I don't think that they particularly need it, and I'm not a fan of second, third edition of Wargames rules, which are already successful. So my understanding and hope is that they will simply be better organised and better presented, because that's really my main criticism of the rules. So, as I say, in the following videos I will talk about some of the specific rule mechanisms. There are some innovative mechanisms within the rules which all help to give the flavour and feel of the divisional warfare. I'll talk about how those work and how they fit together, also how to create your forces, and then, as I say, I will do some demonstration videos showing how to fight firstly individual combats and then hopefully a complete battle. So hope you enjoy the videos, and look forward to seeing you again in the next one.